Aloha everyone. So last week, the Maui Housing and Land Use Committee held public testimony on Bill 9, which is the highly controversial vacation rental phase-out bill. And in this video, we're going to talk about what happened in that meeting and what comes next. So last week, overflow crowds turned out to either support or oppose the phase-out of more than 6,000 short-term rental condos in Maui that have legally operated in apartment zoning for decades. And it's not over yet. More than 180 people signed up to testify, and when the meeting ended around 4:30 p.m., only 52 had had a chance to speak. So we still have to wait a while before we see how the council will ultimately vote. They will continue the public testimony next Wednesday, June 18th, starting at 9 a.m. Hawaii time. And based on how far they got in the first day, I wouldn't be surprised if they need at least one more additional day. So if you haven't already submitted your testimony, there is still time. I'll share the meeting details in the description below. Now, after the Housing and Land Use Committee completes the public testimony, the bill then advances to the full Maui County Council for even more hearings before a decision is made. So this process will take some time. And even if it does pass, the mayor is now suggesting a 3-year timeline for the phase-out of these properties' short-term rental usage. And in the meantime, I'm sure there'll be class action lawsuits that can make the ultimate outcome drag out even longer. Regardless of which side you're on, this is unfortunate because this is a topic that is dividing Maui's community. Now, I did watch the entire first day's worth of testimony last week, and I've had a lot of people ask me to share my thoughts. First of all, if you want to watch the recording of the entire meeting yourself, I'll share a link in the description below so you can check it out and make your own judgments. The meeting did start with a presentation from the mayor and his staff where they outlined their justification for the bill. Of course, they highlighted the statistics that showed that there is a shortage of affordable housing here on Maui, which is something that everyone already acknowledges as a real problem. No one is debating whether or not there's a shortage of housing, but we're not in agreement on what the best way to solve the problem is. The mayor and his staff highlighted other major cities that imposed restrictions on short-term rentals in an effort to create more affordable housing. But I would argue that there's a huge difference in phasing out short-term rentals in major cities that have diversified economies where residents' income does not solely rely on the tourism industry like we do here on Maui. So I personally don't think it's a fair comparison. And if you look at an example like New York City, where they removed 90% of the short-term rentals, housing did not improve, rents went up, and the nightly rates for hotels in the city skyrocketed. Honestly, I believe that the only winners if Maui's Bill 9 gets passed are the hotels. So the way I see it, and based on actual economic studies, there is no guarantee that eliminating these short-term rentals will create affordable housing. I really do wish it was that simple, but it's not. From a realtor's perspective, we know that most of the people who buy these short-term rentals on Maui are doing it because they want to use the properties themselves for their own vacations. If the properties are converted to long-term rentals, they can no longer use the properties themselves, so they're not likely to do it. The rental income helps to subsidize the cost of ownership. It's not a get-rich-quick scheme. If short-term rentals are phased out in these condos, it's more likely that they will become second homes and just sit vacant in between the time the owner uses the property themselves. Sure, there will be some people that have to sell because they need the rental income to carry the property. But the HOA dues and assessments alone guarantee these properties will remain unaffordable for local families. And I would speculate that the people who will end up buying them are more likely to be people who want a vacation home and that can afford to hold a property without the rental income. In this market, it'll likely be a cash buyer who's looking for a good deal. Values for these properties that are at risk of losing their ability to short-term rent have already come down significantly, and we just aren't seeing a rush of permanent residents going out to buy them. So the most powerful argument against this bill is to help those that are in favor of it understand that the proposal does not guarantee more affordable housing, but it does guarantee that it will impact Maui's biggest economic engine, which is tourism. We shouldn't be tearing down a system that is currently supporting local families without offering a real alternative to support the local economy. The mayor's extreme approach really does risk doing more harm than good. And Maui deserves a solution that actually builds housing, not destroys livelihoods. Now, as I mentioned, I did watch the entire first day of public testimony, and while I didn't keep a tally of how many people were in favor of the bill versus how many were against it, it did seem like it was very balanced. If anyone kept count on the testifiers in favor versus those in opposition, please share that in the comment section below. That being said, there were several thousand written testimonies that were submitted, and around 83% of the written testimony that is shown to the public were in strong opposition of Bill 9 and against the phase out of these short-term rentals. Now, one thing that I did find very interesting were some of the questions that came from a couple of the council members that they asked every testifier that was in opposition of the bill. They made a point to ask the name of the realtors that helped them buy their property, as if they're trying to throw the realtors under the bus. Now, none of the testifiers were comfortable naming the realtor, but it really wouldn't matter if they did. These properties are legally allowed to be used as short-term rentals, and that fact was codified into law. At the time of purchase, buyers followed all the county and state requirements to operate legally. And furthermore, most of these properties actually have condo declarations that were approved by the county when they were built that explicitly allow transient vacation rental use. All of this was done in the open. The county approved them to be used as transient accommodations when they were built. They passed a law codifying their ability to be used as short-term rentals, and they issued transient accommodation tax licenses to each of these owners for these properties. I really think the county needs to take some accountability for this. It's their policies and the overregulation of the permitting process that has created this housing crisis. Now they need to prioritize solutions that are rooted in facts, statistics, and logic, not just emotions. Anyways, that's just a quick update from day one of the Bill 9 testimony at Maui's Housing and Land Use Committee. If you haven't already submitted your testimony, make sure you do so. I'll share a link to the public meeting notice that will share some information on how you can testify in the description below. This is likely to drag out for several more weeks before we have a formal decision from the Maui County Council, but I'll do my best to keep you all informed as we go through the process. Feel free to subscribe for more updates, share this video with anyone you know who cares about Maui's future, and hit the like button if you want to support the channel and its message. I hope to see you all in the next video. Aloha.